It's January 9th. It's Monday, 2023, your Day Weather Podcast, brought to you by Cowboy State Daily. Check them out at cowboystatedaily.com. Also brought to you by WYDOT. When there's ice and snow, take it slow. Well, this is going to sound, this podcast, very much familiar to what you heard last week. Basically, it's another week of Pacific storms. And essentially, it's the same weather pattern we have gone through over the past week. We're going to see it again, as the pattern is just going to repeat. Two waves of moisture will be pushing through the western United States early this week and middle of the week. This is going to result in more areas of snow and areas of west of the divide. The West Coast, California, the Pacific Northwest will have most of the weather. However, some snow is going to reach portions of the central Rockies this week, getting over the divide, and this will cause some travel problems. We don't expect a big storm per se, but we are going to see basically the same pattern. The West Coast getting battered, California in particular, then moisture moving inland. Out east of the divide, the weather won't be as active, but there's some weather coming our way. Look at this satellite photo, just impressive. You can see the next wave of rain now moving into California. You see a swirl or two of clouds up into the Gulf of Alaska, another big low there northwest of Hawaii. So the march of Pacific waves is going to continue here for at least another week or so. And what happens is these storms will batter the West Coast, and then what's left of these storms as they head inland will come our way. And we can loop here the Pacific water vapor, basically the forecast of what we call precipitable water. The green and the blue and the purples there highlighting where the moisture is very, very deep. And you can see you have these waves coming into the West Coast. Some of that moisture gets into the Rockies before kind of fading out as it hits the plains, at least early in the period. So there's this copious amounts of moisture getting driven in from the Pacific right across the far west. So this is going to favor, again, the West Coast areas and areas along and west of the divide. And you can see from the 500 millibar pattern what's going to be happening today. Generally a westerly flow. Winds aloft are strong as well, so that means continued windy areas along sections of I-25 and Interstate 80. That caused a lot of blowing snow problems along Interstate 80 over the weekend, causing more road closures. And I will tell you, Interstate 80 is going to be a struggle all week, at least here through the first half of the week, not only because of blowing snow, but as these waves of Pacific moisture come through, Interstate 80 across Wyoming, Utah, all the way to California will be battered and beaten by these fronts and waves of moisture and wind coming on through. This is wave one of moisture. This is through the next 48 hours. So you can see California getting it, and then just like what we saw last week, the moisture gets right up to the divide. And that's where you're going to have the moisture. East of the divide, it's a down-sloping westerly wind, so the air dries out, and you're really just not going to get much in the way of precipitation. This is wave number one. This is what will be taking place today through tomorrow. So you can see the mountains are going to get some moisture. East of the divide, not much going on. And this is the snow that's going to fall here over the next 48 hours. Look at the central Sierra Nevada, 5 feet of snow. And there's no reason to believe that won't happen. Now, the second wave of moisture is going to happen midweek. We do have a piece of that California weather coming our way. A little bit of a bigger hunk survives its trip over the mountains, and it will produce a little bit of weather across parts of Wyoming in particular during the second wave. So this is the precipitation that's going to fall from late Tuesday through Wednesday and into early Thursday. Notice we have a little bit of moisture right here getting over the divide with that secondary system. So we could be looking at parts of central, east central, and maybe southern Wyoming and western Nebraska getting impacted by a little bit of snow east of the divide, maybe into parts of northeastern Colorado as well, then across portions of Kansas. And then again, you can see the Pacific Northwest and California with wave number two getting more precipitation there. So as we take a look at this pattern, we certainly see the precipitation coming our way in two waves for the start of this week. This is what the snowfall looks like. So this is where midweek we've got to watch maybe some potential snowfall over some of the lower elevations right there travelers, keep an eye on that. 10-day forecast. This is adding up all the 10 days ahead of us, the next week and a half. And you can see this looks very familiar to a lot of the maps we showed you a week ago. And there you can see the snowfall total. So the snowpack is going to get refreshed again for another week. Longer term, we've been talking about towards the middle to the end of the month, a change in the weather pattern where the West Coast is probably going to see a break and a colder regime will develop across the central and eastern United States. And we still see it. This is for Monday, the 23rd of the month. We'll see it's going to be sometime around or after the 20th. We'll see what happens. But we do see a kind of a realignment of the weather patterns across North America, trending towards colder weather in the central and the eastern parts of the United States. That includes the Rockies and High Plains. While the West Coast here, you can see some high pressure trying to come on in. But it's going to be essentially another 7 to 10 days of the same thing. Have yourself a great Monday. We'll see you on Tuesday.